And Sati is speaking to her father, Daksha. My dear father, the opulence we possess, possible for either you or your flatterers to imagine. For persons who engage in fruitive activities by performing great sacrifices are concerned with satisfying their bodily necessities by eating foodstuff offered as sacrifice. We can exhibit our opulences simply by desiring to do so. This can be achieved only by great personalities who are renounced, self realized souls. Purport by Divine Vivekananda Swami Prabhupada. Sati's father was under the impression that he was exalted in both prestige and opulence, and that he offered his daughter to a person who was not only poor, but devoid of culture. Her father might have been thinking that although she was a chaste woman, greatly adherent to her husband was in a deplorable condition. To counteract such thoughts, Sati said that the opulence possessed by her husband could not be understood by materialistic persons like Daksha and his followers, who were flatterers and were engaged in fruitive activities. Her husband's position was different. He possessed all opulences, but he did not like to exhibit them. Therefore, such opulences are called avyakta, or unmanifested. But if required simply by willing, Lord Shiva can show his wonderful opulences, and such an event is predicted here, for it would soon occur. The opulence Lord Shiva possesses is enjoyable in renunciation and love of God, not in material exhibition of sense gratificatory methods. Not in such opulences are possessed by personalities like Kumaras, Narada, and Lord Shiva, not by others. In this verse, the performers of the Vedic rituals are condemned. Wow. Okay. They have been described here as Duma Vartma Bihi, those who maintain themselves on the remnants of sacrificial foodstuff. There are two kinds of foodstuff offered in sacrifice. One kind is food offered to fruitive ritualistic sacrifices. And the other, the best, is food offered to Vishnu. Okay. Although in all cases, Vishnu is the chief deity in the sacrificial altar, the performers of fruitive rituals aim to satisfy various demigods to achieve in return some material prosperity. Real sacrifice, however, is to satisfy Lord Vishnu. And the remnants of such sacrifices are beneficial for advancement in devotional service. The process of elevation by performing sacrifices other than those aimed at Vishnu is very slow, and therefore it has been condemned in this verse. Vishwanath Chakravarti has described the ritualistic performers to be like crows, because crows delight in eating the remnants of food which has been thrown into the dustbin. All the brahmanas who were present for the sacrifice were also condemned by Sati. Whether or not King Daksha and his followers could understand the position of Lord Shiva, Sati wanted to impress upon her father that he should not think her husband to be without opulence. Sati, being the devoted wife of Lord Shiva, offered all kinds of material opulences to the worshippers of Lord Shiva. This fact is explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto. Lord Shiva's worshippers sometimes appear more opulent than the worshippers of Lord Vishnu, because Durga or Sati, being the superintendent in charge of material affairs, can offer all material opulences to the worshippers of Lord Shiva in order to glorify her husband, whereas the worshippers of Vishnu are meant for spiritual elevation, and therefore their material opulence is sometimes found to decrease. These points are very nicely discussed in the 10th canto. Okay, so the real devotees, yeah.
What verse number, Maharaj?
What's that?
Which verse number are we on it?
You're on Canto 4, Chapter 4, verse number 21.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically this verse is saying that the followers of Daksha are engaged in fruitive activities. So, although they possess all types of opulences, oh no, okay. So they're very opulent, but her husband does not demonstrate or show all his opulences. Why? Because he is very humble, meaning Lord Shiva is very humble, and he doesn't flounder or make a big deal about all the opulences he has. However, if required, simply by willing, Lord Shiva can show his wonderful opulences, and such an event is predicted here, for it will soon occur. The opulence of Lord Shiva, and the opulence Lord Shiva possesses, is enjoyable in renunciation and love of God, not in material exhibition of sense gratificatory methods. Such opulences are possessed by personalities like the Kumaras, Narada, Lord Shiva, not by others. Now that's a very significant statement, and we're going to see what that means exactly in the next couple of verses. However, the people who are considered performers of the Vedic rituals are condemned. Now that's surprising that they're saying this. They have been described here as Duma Vartmabihi, those who maintain themselves on the remnants of sacrificial foodstuff. There are two kinds of foodstuff offered in sacrifice. One kind is food offered in fruitive ritualistic sacrifices, and the other, the best, is food offered to Vishnu. Although in all cases Vishnu is the chief deity in the sacrificial altar, the performers of fruitive rituals aim to satisfy various demigods to achieve in return some material prosperity. Real sacrifice, however, is to satisfy Lord Vishnu, and the remnants of such sacrifices are beneficial for the advancement in devotional service. The process of elevation by performing sacrifices, other than those aimed at Vishnu, is very slow, and therefore it has been condemned in this verse. Okay, so Vishwanath Chakravarti has described the ritualistic performers to be like crows, because crows delight in eating the remnants of food which has been thrown into the dustbin. All the brahmanas who were present for the sacrifice were also condemned by Sati. Whether or not King Daksha and his flatterers could understand the position of Lord Shiva, Sati wanted to impress upon her father that he should not think her husband to be without opulence. Sati, being the devoted wife of Lord Shiva, offers all kinds of material opulences to worshippers of Shiva. This fact is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto. Lord Shiva's worshippers sometimes appear more opulent than worshippers of Lord Vishnu, because Durga, or Sati, being the superintendent in charge of material affairs, can offer all material opulences to the worshippers of Lord Shiva. In order to glorify her husband, whereas the worshippers of Vishnu are meant for spiritual elevation, and therefore their material opulence is sometimes found to decrease. These points are very nicely discussed in the 10th canto. Okay, so there is such a thing as spiritual opulence as opposed to material opulence. They're not the same thing. Spiritual opulence is something that is what you would call hidden, whereas material opulence is ostentatious. So the we'll hear that the followers of Lord Shiva they are not, well, it says, they offer all kinds of material opulences to the worshippers of Lord Shiva. This fact is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto. Lord Shiva's worshippers sometimes appear more opulent than the worshippers of Lord Vishnu, because Durga, or Sati, being the superintendent in charge of material affairs, can offer all material opulences to the worshippers of Lord Shiva in order to glorify her husband, whereas the worshippers of Vishnu are meant for spiritual elevation, and therefore their material opulence is sometimes found to decrease. These points are very nicely discussed in the 10th canto. Okay, so when Srila Prabhupada came to the United States, it looked like he was destitute. He didn't have any money. He said maybe $40, but he had a whole bunch of books that he had written about Krishna, and he had full faith in his Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he was not actually destitute, although it might look like he was completely destitute. He comes to the United States, he doesn't have any, followers, no disciples, and he just has about $40 in his pocket. but he has complete faith in Krishna and in the chanting the holy name. And then he goes to Tompkins Square, which really was a very low class place with all kinds of drug addicts and very fallen people. And that's where he started the movement. And he started the movement simply by chanting Hare Krishna. Now, I was there at that time. I didn't know anything about Krishna consciousness, but I did go to Tompkins Square. Unfortunately, I didn't see Prabhupada there. But Tompkins Square was a place where a lot of young hippies would go, and they'd smoke marijuana and engage in all kinds of sense gratificatory nonsense. So it was not a very prominent place. Uh, but there were a lot of young men and women that would go there and spend a lot of time just talking nonsense, doing nonsense things, and so forth. So Prabhupada goes there and he starts chanting Hare Krishna. And that was the beginning of the Hare Krishna revolution in America. And he got young people to chant and dance. That was important. This dancing, Prabhupada once said, the dancing is scientific. So, of course, it's hard for mundane people to understand that. But definitely chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and dancing purifies one's soul and helps one to understand the relationship with Krishna. So it is a science. It's a spiritual science. Okay, so text 22. You are an offender at the lotus feet of Lord Shiva. And unfortunately, I have a body produced from yours. So Sati is speaking to her father, Daksha. I am very much ashamed of our bodily relationship. And I condemn myself because my body is contaminated by a relationship with a person who is an offender at the lotus feet of the greatest personality, meaning Lord Shiva. Okay, so Sati is making major statements to her father, and she is now preparing herself to commit suicide. Lord Shiva is the greatest of all devotees of Lord Vishnu. Well, that's a fact. And she's explaining that to her father. It is stated, Vaishnavanam Yata Sambhu. Sambhu, or Shiva, is the greatest of all devotees of Lord Vishnu. In the previous verses, Shakti is described that Lord Shiva is always in a transcendental position because he is situated in pure Vasudeva. Vasudeva is that state from which Krishna, Vasudeva, is born. So Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee of Lord Krishna. And Sati's behavior is exemplary because no one should tolerate blasphemy against Lord Vishnu or his devotee. Well, that's good news. Sati is aggrieved not for her personal association with Lord Shiva, but because her body is related with that of Daksha, who is an offender at Lord Shiva's lotus feet. She feels herself to be condemned because of the body given by her father, Daksha. Now you can see how the drama is getting more and more intense, and it's going to lead to Sati's committing suicide. Text 23. Because of our family relationship, when Lord Shiva addresses me as Dakshayani, I at once become morose. In other words, she becomes very, very unhappy. And my jolliness and my smile at once disappear. I feel very much sorry that my body, which is just like a bag, has been produced by you. Now she's talking to her father, Daksha. I shall therefore give it up. Well, you can see how determined she is to completely cut off any relationship with her father, Daksha. The word Dakshayani means the daughter of King Daksha. Sometimes, when there was relaxed conversation between husband and wife, Lord Shiva used to call Sati the daughter of King Daksha. And because this was and because this very word reminded her of her family relationship with King Daksha, she at once became ashamed because Daksha was an incarnation of all offenses. Daksha was the embodiment of envy. Wow, very hard statement. For he unnecessarily blasphemed a great personality, Lord Shiva. Simply upon hearing the word Dakshayani, she felt afflicted because of reference to the context, because her body was the symbol of all the offensiveness with which Daksha was endowed. Since her body was constantly a source of unhappiness, she decided to give it up. A very hard decision. Text 24. Maitreya, the sage, told Vidura, O annihilator of enemies, while thus speaking to her father, in the arena of sacrifice, Sati sat down on the ground and faced north. Dressed in saffron garments, she sanctified herself with water and closed her eyes to absorb herself in the process of mystic yoga. It is said that when a man desires to quit his body, he dresses in saffron garments. Therefore, it appeared that Sati changed her dress, indicating that she was going to quit the body given by Daksha. Daksha was Sati's father. So instead of killing Daksha, she decided that it would be better to destroy the part of his body which was hers. Thus, she decided to give up the body of Daksha by yogic process. Sati was the wife of Lord Shiva, who is known as Yogeshwara, the best among all yogis, because he knows all mystic processes of yoga. So it appeared that Sati also knew them. Either she learned yoga from her husband, or she was enlightened because she was the daughter of such a great king as Daksha. The perfection of yoga is that one can give up one's body or release oneself from embodiment of material elements according to one's desire. Yogis who have attained perfection are not subject to death by natural laws. Such perfect yogis can leave the body whenever they desire. Generally, the yogi first of all becomes mature in controlling the air passing within the body, thus bringing the soul to the top of the brain. It's called Brahmarandra, the top of the brain. And there's a small hole everybody has. When there's a baby, that hole is very prominent and very soft on the top of the head of a baby. But as we get older, it gets very hard and it becomes very small, but it's still there. And that's the hole from which a very highly developed, let's say, yogi can leave the body and go wherever he wants to go in the universe. And they can also come back again. Those are also all mystic opulences of genuine yogis. So while they're out of the body, they have to make sure the body's in a safe place, so nobody comes and, in one way or other, damages the body. Otherwise, when they come back, the body is damaged. So they have to leave the body in a very safe place, and they can leave and go wherever they want to go.
And the body doesn't decay.
No, no. It can if it's like eaten by some animal or something. So they have to be careful where they leave the body. Uh, Obviously, there are very few people who can do this.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Then, when the body bursts into flames, the yogi can go anywhere he likes. This yoga system recognizes the soul, and thus it is distinct from so-called yoga process for controlling the cells of the body, which has been discovered in the modern age. The real yoga process accepts the transmigration of the soul from one planet to another or one body to another. And it appears from this incident that Sati wanted to transfer her soul to another body or sphere. Okay, text 25. First of all, she sat in the required sitting posture, and then she carried the life air upwards and placed it in the position of equilibrium near the navel. Then she raised her life air, mixed with intelligence, to the heart, and then gradually towards the pulmonary passage, and from there to between her eyebrows. Wow. Purport. The yogic process is to control the air passing within the body in different places called Sat Chakra, the 6 circles of air circulation. The air is raised from the abdomen to the navel, from the navel to the heart, from the heart to the throat, from the throat to between the eyebrows, and from between the eyebrows to the top of the cerebrum. Well, the top of the cerebrum is the hole that's in the head. Now, when someone is a little baby, you can touch it, and it's very soft, and it's rather big. So, if you ever have a chance to touch the head of a baby or a very, very young child, you can feel how soft one part of the brain is, the head is, you know. But as they get older, it gets smaller and smaller, and then it becomes very hard. But it's still there. There is a hole still there,
Mm.
and yogis know how to escape from the body through that hole. But if they make a mistake, the uh, let's say the mind or the brain of the person like explodes and they die. So it's a type of mystic yoga, but it's very dangerous, and one should not try and do that. And why would we do that anyway? Uh, just because we can mystically leave the body and travel around in the universe, that's not really a great accomplishment. You can, get into an airplane, fly around the world, right? So it's better to engage in devotional service, uh, and not try and develop these mystical opulences that some people are able to do. Okay, so it says that the air. Okay, the yogic process is to control the air passing within the body in different places called sat chakra, or six circles of air circulation. The air is raised from the abdomen to the navel, from the navel to the heart, from the heart to the throat, and from the throat to between the eyebrows, and from between the eyebrows to the top of the cerebrum, from the top of the head. That is the sum and substance of practicing yoga. Before practicing the real yoga system, one has to practice the sitting postures, and because this helps in the beginning, in the breathing exercises, which control the airs going upwards and downwards. This is a great technique which one has to practice to attain the highest perfectional stage of yoga, but such practice is not meant for this age. Okay, thank God. No one in this age can attain the perfectional stage of such yoga, but people indulge in practicing sitting processes, which is more or less a gymnastic process. Okay, now we're hearing the real truth. By such bodily gymnastics, one may develop good circulation and may therefore keep one's body fit. But if one simply restricts oneself to that gymnastic process, one cannot attain the highest perfectional stage. The yoga process, as described in the uh, Keshava Shruti, prescribes how one can control his living force according to his desire and transmigrate from one body to another, or from one place to another. In other words, yoga practice is not meant to keep the body fit. Any transcendental process of spiritual realization automatically helps one to keep the body fit, for it is the spirit soul that keeps the body always fresh. As soon as the spirit soul is out of the body, the material body immediately begins to decompose. Any spiritual process keeps the body fit without separate endeavor. But if one takes it that the ultimate aim of yoga is to maintain the body, then he is mistaken. The real perfection of yoga is elevation of the soul to the higher position, or liberation of the soul from material entanglement. Some yogis try to elevate the soul to higher planetary systems, where the standard of life is different from that of this planet, and where the material comforts, lifespan, and other facilities for self-realization are greater. And some yogis endeavor to elevate the soul to the spiritual Vaikuntha planets. Bhakti Yoga, the Bhakti Yoga process directly elevates the soul to the spiritual planets, where life is eternally blissful and full of knowledge. Therefore, Bhakti Yoga is considered to be the greatest of all yoga systems. Well, that is what we are practicing, Bhakti Yoga, love and devotion for Lord Krishna. So it is not simply a physical exercise. The yogis actually engage in physical exercise in the sense they control the breathing and they are sitting on a deer skin. Why deer skin? Because snakes will stay away from a deer skin. So because they sit in one place and meditate for a long time, it could be dangerous because they're in the forest and you're alone and there are snakes, right? But because you're sitting on a deer skin, the snakes avoid them. Okay, so text 26. Thus, in order to give up her body, which had been so respectfully and affectionately seated on the lap of Lord Shiva, who is worshipped by great sages and saints, Sati, due to anger towards her father, began to meditate on the fiery air within the body. Uh-oh, that's dangerous. Lord Shiva is described herein as the best of all great souls. Although Sati's body was born of Daksha, Lord Shiva used to adore her by sitting her on his lap. This is considered a great token of respect. Thus, Sati's body was not ordinary, but still she decided to give it up because it was the source of unhappiness because of its connection to Daksha. This severe example is set by Sati. Is to be This severe example set by Sati is to be followed. Wow. One should be extremely careful about associating with persons who are not respectful for the higher authorities. It is instructed, therefore, in the Vedic literature that one should always be free from the association of atheists and non-devotees and should try to associate with devotees. Okay, well, that's a very significant statement. However, parents put their children in schools where they're going to associate with unholy people, unholy, students and teachers. So that's a big mistake that people make. For by association of a devotee, one can be elevated to the platform of self-realization. Yeah, so we should only put our children in a school where there are actual devotees, and the teachers also are devotees. This injunction is stressed in many places in Srimad Bhagavatam. If one wants to be liberated from the clutches of material existence, then one has to associate with great souls. And if one wants to continue one's material existential life, then one may associate with persons who are materialistic. That's if you want to continue your materialistic life. If you want to give it up, then you should only associate with devotees. The materialistic way of life is based on sex life. This both becoming addicted to sex life and associating with persons who are addicted to sex life are condemned in the Vedic literature because such association will simply interfere with one's spiritual progress. Now, that is the truth. The one thing that can make a person immediately give up Krishna consciousness is illicit sex. And we should understand that. So, if you want to immediately give up your Krishna consciousness, then engage in illicit sex. But if you want to continually be Krishna conscious, you have to avoid in all circumstances illicit sex. Now, what is illicit sex and what is not illicit sex? Now, that's a big question. Well, anything that you do for sense gratification is condemned. But anything we do for the pleasure of Krishna is recommended. So there is a way of having sex for the pleasure of the Lord. That is to not to have any pleasure from the sexual engagement, but to give birth to genuine devotees. And then taking the responsibility to raise them and protect them and educate them so that when they become adults, those children have become genuine devotees right from the start of their life because of being born in a good family where the members of the family are not interested in sex. They're interested in helping their children become pure devotees. But most people don't think like this. They want to have children, but they're not so interested in helping the children become pure devotees. They want the children to be successful in mundane knowledge and mundane activities and so forth. So they take their children to chess, what you would call chess, chess game pastimes, and to sports, baseball, football, basketball sports, and also to other types of material bodily exercises and so forth, skiing, and in any case, everything related to the body and not anything related to the soul. So, or to force the children to study and become very highly proficient in academics. All these things are artificially, let's say, forced on the children. And sometimes the children develop very severe frustration because of the adamant forcing of the parents for material excellence rather than spiritual excellence. And then sometimes children have what you would call a mental breakdown because they're being forced to always be number one in their class and to be always, academically uh, prominent. And then sometimes children will uh, have a breakdown and then they'll revolt against their parents and refuse to be academics. You know, so you have to be very careful when you raise a child. And what is the purpose? Uh, if the purpose is to help your child become a devotee uh, and not, let's say, force it to be um, a champion at chess or a champion in academics and so forth, uh, then the child grows up more or less in a peaceful atmosphere. But if the parents are always putting pressure on the child to be academically very, popular or an achiever, a high achiever academically, sometimes the children they have a material mental breakdown, and I've seen that. And then the child sort of revolts and refuses to be educated, so-called educated, in mundane education. However, association with great personalities, devotees who are great souls, will elevate one to the spiritual platform. Sati Devi decided to quit the body she had obtained from Daksha's body, and she wanted to transfer herself to another body so that she have completely uncontaminated association with Lord Shiva. Of course, it is understood that in her next life she would take birth as the daughter of the Himalayas, Parvati, and then she would again accept Lord Shiva as her husband. Sati and Lord Shiva are eternally related even after she changes her body. Their relationship is never broken. Very significant statement. Text 27. Sati concentrated all her meditation on the holy lotus feet of her husband, Lord Shiva, who is the supreme spiritual master of all the world. Thus, she became completely cleansed of all taints of sin and quit her body in a blazing fire of meditation on the fiery elements. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sati at once thought of the lotus feet of her husband, Lord Shiva, who is one of the three great personalities of Godhead in charge of the management of the material world. And simply by meditating on his lotus feet, she derived such great pleasure that she forgot everything in relationship with her body. This pleasure was certainly material because she gave up her body for another body that was also material. But by this example, we can appreciate the devotee's pleasure in concentrating his mind and attention on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vishnu or Krishna. There is such transcendental bliss in simply meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord that one can forget everything but the Lord's transcendental form. This is the perfection of yogic samadhi or ecstasy. In this verse, it is stated that by meditation, she became free from all contamination. What was that contamination? The contamination was her concept of body derived from daksha, but she forgot that bodily relationship, in trance. The purport is that when one becomes free from all bodily relationships within this material world and simply places himself in the position of an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, it is to be understood that all the contamination of his material attachment has been burned by the blazing fires of transcendental ecstasy. It is not necessary for one to manifest a blazing fire externally. Oh, well, that's good. That's good news. For if one forgets all bodily relationships within this material world and becomes situated in his spiritual identity, it is said that one has been freed from all material contamination by the blazing fire of yogic samadhi or ecstasy. That is the topmost perfection of yoga. So, in other words, you don't have to set yourself on fire. That would be a mistake. But you have the fire of ecstatic life or ecstatic ecstasies of yogic samadhi. That is the topmost perfection of yoga. If one keeps this bodily relationship within this material world and poses himself as a great yogi, he is not a bona fide yogi. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2:4-15, it is stated, Yat kirtanam, yat smaranam, simply by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, simply by remembering the lotus feet of Krishna, simply by offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is immediately freed from material contamination. Okay, so that's our main takeaway today. In other words, simply by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, simply by remembering the lotus feet of Krishna, simply by offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is immediately freed from all material contamination, the material bodily concept, by the blazing fire of ecstasy. This effect takes place immediately without a seconds delay. Okay, that's our takeaway today. And if we understand this, in other words, simply by remembering the lotus feet of Krishna, simply by offering prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, simply by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, etc., what happens? One is freed from the material contamination, the material bodily concept, by the blazing fire of ecstasy. This effect takes place immediately without a second delay. According to Sri Jiva Goswami, that sati quit her body means that she gave up within her heart her relationship with Daksha. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also comments that since Sati is the superintendent deity of the external potency, when she quit her body, she did not get a spiritual body, but simply transferred from the body she had received from Daksha. Other commentators also say that she immediately transferred herself into the womb of Menaka, her future mother. She gave up the body she had received from Daksha and immediately transferred herself to another, better body. But this does not mean that she got a spiritual body. Okay. Text 28. And we'll stop with this verse. When Sati annihilated her body in anger, there was a tumultuous roar all over the universe. Why had Sati, the wife of the most respectable demigod, Lord Shiva, quit her body in such a manner? Purport. There was a tumultuous roaring all over the universe in the societies of the demigods of different planets because Sati was the daughter of Daksha, the greatest of all kings, and the wife of Lord Shiva, the greatest of all demigods. Why did she become so angry that she gave up her body? Since she was the daughter of a great personality and wife of a great personality, she had nothing to desire, but still she gave up her body in dissatisfaction. Certainly, this was astonishing. One cannot attain complete satisfaction even if one is situated in the greatest material opulence. There was nothing Sati could not achieve, either from her relationship with her father or from her relationship with the greatest of the demigods. But still, for some reason, she was dissatisfied. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.6 explains that one has to achieve real satisfaction, yayatma suprasiditi. But Atma, the body, mind, and soul, all become completely satisfied only if one develops service to the absolute truth, Krishna. Savai pum samparo dharmo yato bhaktir ahoksaja. Ahoksaja means the absolute truth. If one can develop his unflinching love for the transcendental supreme personality of Godhead, that can give complete satisfaction. Otherwise, there's no possibility of satisfaction in the material world or anywhere else. Okay, that is our takeaway for today. And we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? Any questions?
I think this point is probably very
What?
this point that even though Sati had all the material opulence and also she was married to Lord Shiva, there's some dissatisfaction and the way the situation turned out. And that's ideally for a devotee, like devotee of the Supreme Lord. There should not be such a dissatisfaction.
Yeah, definitely.
So even though she is the this is somewhat hard to comprehend that she is the controller of the entire material energy and then she also goes through this seemingly like a normal activity, like what typically a regular materialist will go through these kind of challenges of people, relationships, and struggles. But when we hear about Krishna Kada, wherever Krishna is there is happiness.
Well, because they're completely satisfied by engagement in devotional service. They don't need anything else. They don't need big car, big house. They don't need, opulent food. They're very happy with simple things, and it gives them ample time and energy for Krishna conscious activities. It says, there was nothing Sati could not achieve. either from her relationship with her father or from her relationship with the greatest of the demigods. But still, for some reason, she was dissatisfied. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam 126 explains that one has to achieve real satisfaction, yayatma supersidity, but atma, the body, mind, and soul, all become completely satisfied only if one develops devotional service to the absolute truth. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti ahoksaja. Ahoksaja means the absolute truth. If one can develop his unflinching love for the transcendental supreme personality of Godhead, that can give complete satisfaction. Otherwise, there's no possibility of satisfaction in the material world or anywhere else. So this verse, Savai Pumsa Parodharmo Yato Bhakti Rahotsaje, that one can achieve satisfaction, but Atma, the body, mind, and soul, all become completely satisfied only. So it's a big word, only, if one develops devotional service to the absolute truth, meaning devotional service for Lord Krishna. Savai Pumsa Parodharmo Yato Bhakti Ahoksaja. Ahoksaja means the absolute truth, or Krishna. If one can develop his unflinching love for the transcendental personality of Godhead, that can give complete satisfaction. Otherwise, there's no possibility of satisfaction in the material world or anywhere else. There it is. That's our takeaway for today. There's a song, I can't get no satisfaction. Yeah, well, yeah, because you're not Krishna conscious. That's why, that song.
We can actually see this contrast also between Lord Shiva and Sati. So Lord Shiva is worshipping Lord Krishna Vishnu, and he's completely satisfied.
Yeah,
Whereas Goddess Sati was worshipping Lord Shiva as the husband, of course, but she was, disturbed, even the attachment to the family or whatever. So this, and then giving up this body. So it seems like she went through.
she gave up her body in dissatisfaction.
Right. Yeah, this is very significant.
That's why it says, certainly this was astonishing. One cannot attain complete satisfaction, even if one is situated in the greatest material opulence. There was nothing Sati could not achieve, either from her relationship with her father or from her relationship with the greatest of the demigods, meaning Shiva. But still, for some reason, she was dissatisfied. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.6 explains that one has to achieve real satisfaction, the Atma supersidity. But Atma, the body, mind, and soul, all become completely satisfied only if one develops devotional service to the absolute truth, Krishna. Savai pumsam parodharmo yato bhakti ahoksaja. Ahoksaja means the absolute truth. If one can develop his unflinching love for the transcendental supreme personality Godhead, who is the absolute truth, that can give complete satisfaction. Otherwise, there's no possibility of satisfaction in the material world. That's why there's this famous rock song, I can't get no Satisfaction. Yeah, because you have no relationship with Krishna. But if one has unflinching love for the transcendental Supreme Personality Godhead, that can give complete satisfaction. Otherwise, there's no possibility of satisfaction in the material world or anywhere else. Harivilas. That's our takeaway today. So, thank you very much, my dear devotees. Our time is over, and we'll pick it up 11 hours from now.
Hare